Yes, I'm here.
So I want to ask you a couple of questions about, you lived basically through most of the 20th century, and there were so many cool things that were invented then. And so I want to get some of your memories or recollections about when things came into to play. All right?
Yep.
So one of the first ones, cars were just becoming the mainstream, weren't they, as far as people owning cars and stuff, right?
They were square-looking box cars.
And so I think you remember the first car you remember was a Model T.
Right.
Where at? That was on the farm?
Yeah, on the farm.
Okay. But your guys' first car was what one? Or which one do you remember first?
Oh, 48 Dodge after the war. That's the first car I ever.
Oh, but with your parents in Somerset.
Oh yeah, that was over in Whippet they call it. It was just a box car. No windows. Had curtains instead of glass windows.
Really?
And we'd go up to Provo in the winter in that kind of weather.
With no glass, no enclosed portion, huh?
Well, we had what they called isinglass.
Right.
It was, I don't know what it was made of, but it was closed in, but there's no, heaters weren't known too well. In-car heaters weren't known.
Right. How would you stay warm?
We'd heat rocks in the house and in the oven before we left. That'd help our feet warm
Just
anyway.
tuck your feet on them, huh? Wow. How funny. A couple other things from the 20s. I know that I was thinking about planes. I just flew here and how commercial flight's just a part, but planes had just come into vogue when you're just been invented, basically, hadn't they?
I think the first commercial planes was Pan Am. Pan Am.
Yeah, in the 50s, and then, but you remember
the commercial plane. They were running before the war.
Oh, was that right before the war? Okay.
In the 30s, I'm quite sure.
Okay.
I was trying to think of the name of the airline, but I can't.
The most significant flight event you remember, though, was probably Lindbergh. Is that right?
Lindbergh, then Amelia Earhart.
Okay. So Lindbergh, you would have been, you were 6 or 7 years old then, huh?
I was 6 years old.
Do you remember when it happened?
You bet. Yeah, I remember that.
How'd they put the word out? Did you hear it on the radio or the newspaper?
On the radio.
Okay. Well.
And there was Ron Ray Corrigan shortly after that. The fellow went up in New York. He was supposed to go to L.A.
Right.
But he flew over the Atlantic Ocean anyway. They called him Ron Ray Corrigan. That was in the late 30s, just after Lindbergh a while.
So it seems like that would be the good way to go because it's not against the jet stream. But anyway, well. What about radio?
Well, that was just coming on then, and I think I remember it about the time it first came on. In the 20s, I would suggest.
Okay. And what type of programs did you listen to?
Oh, some music, but then some theories, like there's Bill, Mac, and Jimmy, they called it. It was an adventure of three boys. It appealed to every young American to be experienced like Bill, Mac, or Jimmy.
Okay. I'd like to hear those sometime. Those would be fun to listen to.
You'd never find them.
Is that right? I don't know. You can find a lot nowadays, a lot of the archive stuff. And then you mentioned Will Rogers, too?
Yeah. He was a national humorist. He took more out they're still talking about Congress the way they are now. He knew it. That's what he talked about.
Right.
He was Congress's greatest critic.
Well, kind of a political activist then, huh?
Yeah.
Well.
And the personality, he's a retired cowboy. He did to places, but he could whirl a rope, loop.
All kinds of tricks like that, huh?
And he's on regular columnist on the papers.
Okay. All
and
right.
the radio.
Pretty enjoyable to listen to? You like listening to him?
Yeah.
All right.
He was the first one.
And then the other sound machine came out that time was the phonograph. What's the first phonograph you remember?
Moon shines tonight on a pretty red wing. The breeze is sighing, the night bird's crying. While the far 'neath the sky her brave is sleeping. While Red Wings weeping her heart away.
All right, good bass voice. And who had the phonograph?
That was in the farm.
On the farm? Okay.
They had a lot of good records.
Oh, is that right?
Us kids they let us play them. I'm surprised they did because it was a delicate instrument.
Right.
We could play it most of the time. They didn't want somebody watching this.
Well, a couple other things from the 20s. Tell me about the telephone in Huntington, because telephones were pretty rare, weren't they?
Oh yes, there was only one telephone in town, and that was in the drugstore. And you had to make any phone call. You had to go up there, and I don't know how they'd pay for it, because I was we never used the phone, and nobody to call.
Right. Nobody else had a phone, so you wouldn't need to call anyone, huh? And then they say they trusted you once to make a big phone call, didn't they?
Oh yeah, one night, Garth, my brother, was coughing and choked up. They needed a doctor in Castledale, which is 10 miles away. And they sent me up to the drugstore to tell the doctor to come up there, because he made house calls. And I'm surprised I knew how to do it, or I could even do it today. I guess I'd probably told up somebody at the drugstore and they'd make the call.
Wow.
But I remember running up there just as hard as I could to get there and get that call made.
And it worked out.
It worked out.
Good. One other one from the 20s is sliced bread. What do you remember about sliced bread?
Well, we used to fight over who got the crust at the dinner table, separate table. Because the slice, and then you could slice the crust off them, and that was the choice part of the bread.
Okay.
This other than that, a salted loaf, why you couldn't slice it. You could slice it, but not as good as the bakery could.
Okay. So it was like having a different treat then, huh?
Yeah.
Was sliced bread a treat in those days, or was it did you still do homemade bread mostly, and sliced bread was a treat?
Sliced bread was a treat, yeah. That's why we'd fight over the crust, because the homemade bread homemade bread was good in bread and milk. And butter,
Okay.
Better than bread, but you just didn't. We tried to have homemade bread. That was all. Homemade bread was most popular.
Okay. Well, and that's just about by the time you were 10, we've only hit those things. So I'm gonna have to give another one on a different